I mean, when we first started speaking about canvas tents, and people ask, "Oh, so it's like you're like camping and you're sharing a bathroom with different people?" I said, "No, it's like a villa, it's like a luxury villa. Rates were 300, 400, 500 pounds a night." And I think there is a big trend towards going back to basics, going back to the roots, going back to nature, understanding the food that you eat, where does it come from? The milk that you drink, where does it come from? During the weekdays, these resorts started getting really full. And I saw most of them being full throughout 2020. It was just unbelievable. And this is continuing until now. And rates jumped even higher than they were before.
Hello and welcome to the Glamping Tech podcast. Before I start talking about today's episode, I want to apologise to anyone who was expecting an episode last week. We're considering switching up our release schedule at the minute, which is why we skipped last week, and we might not have one out every single week moving forwards. It's a work in progress at the minute, but I'll let you know when we settle on a schedule. Now, on to today's episode. It's a bit of a different one for you today, as I'm joined by Chris Nader, who's based in Dubai and is an expert on glamping, eco-resorts and all things hospitality in that region and across the wider Middle East. The Middle East is an area of particular interest to Glamping Tech at the minute, as we've recently expanded into the region, and it's all looking very exciting. I appreciate that this might not be what you UK-based listeners are interested in, so I won't be offended if you switch off now, but I do think it's useful to glean what we can from other glamping cultures. I remember speaking to Steph Curtis-Raleigh in a previous episode about how UK glamping businesses can learn a thing or two from those in the US, and today is along similar lines. For anyone listening from the Middle East, welcome, and I hope you find this valuable. For our loyal UK base, thanks for sticking around, and I hope you enjoy. Hi Chris, how you doing?
Hi Nick, I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you for giving up your time and coming on. Could you just give us a introduction to you, your backstory, your career, and what you're doing now, please?
Look, it's a pleasure being here, and it's probably, I think, my first podcast. I've been on so many webinars since the beginning of the pandemic, but not so much on podcasts. So I'm very excited to be here. My name is Chris. I've been in the industry for about 14 years, professionally working in it. But from a background standpoint, I come from a family of hotelier. So we've been in the hotel industry for a few generations. And after completing my MBA from the hotel school in Switzerland, in Lausanne, I was brought on board by Kempinski Hotels to be part of the birth of a new brand called Shaza Hotels for the Middle East, focusing on the Middle Eastern market at a luxury level. So my journey started there, creating these amazing hotels along with a fantastic team, where we had to create everything from scratch, including positioning, branding, concepts, etc. And then in 2010, I had my first, call it, glamping experience. I don't always use that word because it has different connotations and references in the different countries and different positioning levels. But for the sake of this discussion, let's call it glamping. My first glamping experience was in Switzerland at the White Pod. Really cool experience. With this private ski slope, you would go up, sit in these pods, you would put a log in the fire to keep yourself warm at night, and to go down, to the restaurant, you would take a sledge and slide down. This whole trend for me and this whole idea of glamping started back then, but it's only until 2018 when I had the opportunity, when I moved while I was based in the Middle East, to had the opportunity to work on an amazing project here in the UAE called the Kingfisher Retreat. And really, this was my really first hands-on glamping experience in the region. And this is how my passion for glamping really started.
And so, I mean, we're going to get into a discussion about the glamping market in the Middle East in a minute, but I'm just intrigued, obviously, with your experience in the hotel industry. in your attitude towards glamping and maybe helping start glamping sites, have you taken anything from that experience in hotels into the glamping market at all?
Well, look, I wasn't involved really in the creation of the concept. That project had an owner who's very involved and very creative, and he's a visionary, and I think he's one of the first to have brought really a real luxury glamping experience to the region. And maybe we'll speak about the region later on, about how it all started and what are the different types of products available. So I was more involved on the deal side, but I can definitely tell you that the team that I was working with at that time tried to bring the best out of luxury hospitality and implement it into an environment that was very far away from traditional luxury hospitality. I mean, when we first started speaking about canvas tents, and people ask, "Oh, so it's like you're like camping and you're sharing a bathroom with different people?" I said, "No, it's like a villa. It's like a luxury villa. Rates were £300, £400, £500 a night, and you had to provide the same luxury experience that you find in luxury hotels, and especially on the comfort side. But of course, not everything fits in that glamping box." And you can't use sometimes the same materials. You can't use the same standard operating procedures. You have to create new ones that are adapted to such a product. Plus, what was very interesting is that the environmental restriction in which such a project was being built forced the team to be very creative and try to adjust and adapt and find new ways of operating under these circumstances. So very, very interesting experience that I was involved in about 3 years ago now.
Okay, well, let's set the scene then. What is the glamping industry like in the Middle East at the minute?
It's, I know that in the UK it's been a big buzzword for some time. In the Middle East, it started really, I think, last year, I would say, just during the pandemic, just before the pandemic, where the word glamping became, very, very, it appeared in different publications and media, and people started speaking about it. Not everyone understands it, but it's been booming. However, all of this, I'm not sure we can call it glamping, but a lot of this started long time ago. I mean, we here in the UAE, we live in a country where the culture is of nomads, Bedouins who move and live in tents and move from one place to another using tents. So obviously the tent concept is pretty much native of this region. But about 20 years ago, I would say, we started seeing some very interesting resorts in the deserts. And these came not at all as glamping. There were actual, concrete constructions with villas and various types of units, and they became very popular. And some of them had some sort of sustainability elements to them as well. And they became very, very famous. It's been an instant success. And up until now, these resorts that opened a long time ago are still very, very famous. And then slowly, I would say, again, 3 years ago, the first few projects that had a glamping element to them started, seeing the light here in the UAE, including in the northern emirate of Ras Al Khaimah and Sharjah and in Dubai. So we start seeing some tents. We then start seeing some bubbles, some domes, and different levels of luxury, different level of glam, let's call them, with different services as well and facilities. But funny enough, there were instant successes, and rates were immediately higher than most 5-star resorts. So the market kind of immediately picked on these products, and they were not surprised to pay 3, 4, 500 pounds a night to go there, whereas the normal resorts on the coast were struggling to get 200 pounds. But I would say outside of this UAE market, I guess the most remarkable growth in glamping projects came from Jordan before the UAE, and specifically in Wadi Rum in the desert, where we start seeing so many domes and tents and these, and bubbles, very nice, sexy projects via Instagram and with amazing photos. So I would say this is where it really started from a Middle East standpoint.
So it sounds like at the minute, because it's so new, that, I mean, if you just put a few tents out there, you can't help but make money. But it sounds like you think that there's potential for a higher standard once as the industry matures. There's potential for a higher standard where it really is luxury, as opposed to maybe just putting a few canvas tents out in the desert.
Yeah, I would say, if you look at the UAE, and this is probably one of the most established market for glamping at the moment, and we can speak about Saudi Arabia later on. But if you look at the UAE, different emirates have positioned themselves at different levels of luxury and want to attract different types of market. Some are more on the adventure side, others are more on the glam and luxury. The others are more on the exploration and cultural side. So there's definitely a market for different kinds of levels of luxury. Now, one of the biggest trends is really to go raw, nature, survival mode in these camps. And others just wanted to be more and more luxurious. So at the moment, we have quite a diverse offering here in the region. And Abu Dhabi also started picking up this trend, and we saw the birth of 3 projects very quickly. One of them in Al Ain, which consists of some geodesic domes. Another one by the beach, also with domes. And the third one that opened recently during the pandemic was, canvas tents from an European manufacturer. And they're all around, from 200 to 500 pounds. So there is this diversity, and we're lucky here in the UAE that, people who live here and work here and who are interested in such a leisure experience have a high propensity to spend because, they earn decent money. We're lucky in this part of the world that we don't pay income taxes. So it gives them even additional income to spend on these experiences. So I don't mind going with those luxury glamping projects, but I believe there is a need at the moment to create more of those high-end products. People are just, fed up of going to mainstream resorts. First of all, these resorts are mostly on the coast of the UAE where most of us live. So when you go there on a staycation, you don't really feel like you've gone on holidays. You're still sitting in your background, in your backyard somehow. So taking people up on a mountain, up and down in the desert, and giving them this luxury experience, I think many people would be interested to go to such places.
Nice. And how does the market work exactly? And I'm thinking here 2 things. One, the target market, is there a particular kind of person or family that goes glamping over there? And 2, is it seasonal? Because as far as I'm aware, I know the UAE tends to, am I right in thinking that a lot of people just leave in the summer because it gets so hot? So yeah, target market and seasonality. If you could give some info on that, please.
Yeah, I mean, the market is definitely seasonal, and we have a very good season between, I would say, mid-October to just about now, mid of April. I think this is a really good season with the with really high occupancy on weekends, and we have many holidays as well, which is very, we get the best of both worlds. We have the Middle Eastern holidays, we have the European holidays. We kind of combine everything here. So these projects tend to work very well during the weekends, during the season, and then temperatures start rising above 40, 45 degrees Celsius in summer. If you're in the desert, it's going to be very difficult to attract guests during the summer season. I mean, obviously, the number one condition for you is to have a private pool that is temperature controlled. If the pool is not temperature controlled, it's like jumping in a jacuzzi, and it's not what you want. I
can't help but laugh how this is just the complete opposite of the UK. The UK is miserable during outside the summer. I don't think we'd ever have to worry about the pools getting too hot in the UK.
well, here to be able to cool those pools, and in winter, actually, you have to heat them as well.
Yeah.
In the desert, it gets pretty cold, and we need to heat the pool in winter and cool them in summer because of that spread in temperature. So it also gives this additional consideration from a technical standpoint as to, you're in the middle of nowhere in the desert. How do you heat and cool those pools? Do you use, generators that cost a fortune? You're not connected to the municipality grid, so you need to look at, independent energy sources. And investors that are getting more and more onto the renewable energy and sustainability part, but they're still not there. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of questions about, do I have to invest so much at the beginning, and is it worth it? And how's my return on investment on such a renewable energy? So many of the groups and the investors are slowly adopting them, but there's still some work to be done. So that's to answer a little bit your question on seasonality. Mm-hmm. With regards to the target market, we're seeing a very large target types that are coming to those projects. On weekends, we see some of those glamping projects that focus mainly on families and are providing those family-friendly activities and experiences, which work very nicely on weekends and holidays. Others are more on the adult side. So some of the projects would only allow adults to come to the resort, the glamping site. And during the week, before COVID, many were struggling to attract a consistent market during weekdays. So obviously we had international tourists that were coming, and these would fill your weekdays. We also had some business that comes from companies where some team building activities or board meetings, etc., where people just want to go on remote locations. But weekdays were slow. What happened when COVID started is that people discovered that they could work from anywhere. Mm-hmm. They had the technology before, but suddenly it took COVID for them to realize that actually I don't need to be sitting in a boring office, but I can be by the beach in a beautiful tent while, my family is even here around me. They can play and I can work, having this amazing view. So during the weekdays, these resorts started getting really full. Mm. And I saw most of them being full throughout 2020. It was just unbelievable. And this is continuing until now. And rates jumped even higher than they were before. So you had many resorts here on the coast of the UAE trying to fight for that market and offering all-inclusive and upgrades and discounts and many things. And the glamping sites were just, nope, we have limited inventory, we have very high rates. I know that this is where you want to be because you're in a secluded area, you don't see other guests. So they stick to their rates, and it was a great strategy because they were full and made a lot of money.
Mm. And in terms of the potential of the industry, I'd say the UK is it's mature now in terms of the it's recognized in the UK. Everyone knows about glamping, and more and more people are coming to the market because they can see the potential of it. How do you see the industry growing over there? Do you think it will grow to a point where it could even challenge like all the hotels over there, or do you think it'll be niche, or what do you see the future of it in that regard?
So recently I've been advising investors in the region on how to invest in eco resorts and sustainability, and this is something that I think will be booming in the region in the near future. And every government here in the Middle East is really, at least in the GCC, is really pushing investors to go down the sustainability route. So the first step was for governments to put eco strategy in place, especially on ecotourism, to move away from this machine of hotels that were being built left, right, and center at a super high pace since the early 2000s. And now saying, okay, let's stop and see, how are we going to shift our construction and positioning and investment into something that is more sustainable. So I started more and more getting interested in eco resorts, eco lodges, retreats, remote locations. The word glamping is still not recognized in the investment industry, at least not in the majority of investors that I'm talking to. So the moment you speak about let's put some tents out in the desert, they think, oh, okay, then this is a very cheap investment. We can get a decent rate, and we're going to have a very high ROI. If you apply the definition or the trend of glamping in the UK, I assume it is more oriented towards camping with a glam element to it. We're not talking about luxury resorts like Aman and these kinds of brands. It's really more on the entry level type of experience. And the glam comes from the fact that you have your own bathroom probably, and you have like decent comfort. I don't think this is what investors are looking for here in the region. I think their definition of glamping is more of an luxury eco lodge, closer to what you would see in the Maldives, for instance, or some of the amazing projects that Four Seasons has done with Canvas, Aman as well in the US. So, they're more keen on seeing very large units where you have a lot of comfort. There are big families here that go on holidays. The private pool is important, and we're not talking about a small jacuzzi plunge pool. They need decent sized pools. Privacy is very important. So you cannot today develop a project on a small plot of land. Whether it's the desert, the beach, or the mountain, you need a lot of land to be able to create the privacy that people want, because the last thing you want is have your units that are surrounded by walls to create privacy. So you feel like you're trapped between a wall, and that defeats the whole purpose of glamping. Glamping is supposed to bring nature inside your accommodation. So to create natural privacy using sand dunes and trees and bushes and whatever, you need a lot of space. And to be able to get a lot of space, the land will cost more. You have to increase your prices. This supports a higher investment. There's a whole mentality behind it that is, I think, maybe different from other parts of the world when it comes to glamping.
Yeah, and you've mentioned government investment there. The governments do tend to get involved over there, and I think there are some public development projects that the Saudi government are looking at doing. What's the state of play over there for that?
Yeah, this has been really supporting the industry and supporting investors to go down this sustainability and glamping routes a lot. So, the three main markets here, let's say, you have the UAE, you have Saudi Arabia, and these two, and if you split the UAE between the various emirates, each of the emirate has a very strong ecotourism strategy. And to support the ecotourism strategy, they have created some specific entities and funds that promote investment in eco-lodges, glamping, and sustainability. Abu Dhabi has the Abu Dhabi Investment Office, who's clearly pushing investors to come along with the tourism authorities to invest in sustainable resorts. The same with Dubai, the same with Ras Al Khaimah. But I think, as you said, the biggest one probably came from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, as part of their Vision 2030, they decided to obviously diversify away from oil economy, and tourism was a very important part of that vision, of that new strategy. And within tourism, they did something amazing, which was like a big shift from what was happening in the past, is they invested every single project that is seeing the light in Saudi, and we have so many of those big projects. One key component of all of them is sustainability. So what they did is create a tourism development fund, TDF, to support Saudi investors in financing projects, provided they contribute to Vision 2030, meaning they are sustainable, they increase tourism into the country. And also, which was very interesting, they wanted to get away from the main markets and the main cities and try to support secondary cities and remote locations and remote populations by creating, employment opportunities and attract tourists. They have some amazing, sites across the country, whether it's heritage, whether it's nature, mountain, deserts, amazing beaches, on the Red Sea. So there are many opportunities to create some very high-end glamping projects there. And that Tourism Development Fund has been a very great supporter of the Saudi investors to go down this route.
When you say sustainability, what are there anything specifically that they're focused on? So are they, looking at using renewable energy sources or long-lasting canvas structures? What specifically are they looking for in the sustainable element?
They're really trying to be extremely sustainable on all fronts. Mm-hmm. Really, they're not taking this lightly. It's not like, just remove, plastic straws or single-use plastic. It's really about water. It's about, the natural resources. It's about renewable energy. They have so much sun all year round that, using that source is key. And they're partnering with, worldwide organizations and big companies around the world to bring sustainable resources and solutions to the kingdom. There is also a lot about protecting the heritage. There is a lot happening about protecting wildlife as well, and reintroducing wildlife into many areas, especially some of the endangered species. So I think they've been doing a great job. So far, everything that has been really happening in Saudi is at a very luxury level. Don't ask me why, this is a long conversation, but the image of tourism in Saudi is based on luxury tourism. And this is how Dubai was also established several years ago. And now it's slowly shifting to, attracting a wider spectrum of tourists to the Emirate. Because, you can't rely only on luxury tourists to meet your objectives.
Yeah, so clearly sustainability is going to be a key trend in that region moving forwards, and it sounds like luxury is as well. Are there any other trends that you can see emerging in the glamping/eco resort market in the Middle East?
Yeah, we're seeing also a lot of interest from investors and from the market as well into agri-tourism. And, here they have many farms, and especially when it comes to, date processing farms, uh, and I think there is a big trend towards going back to basics, going back to the roots, going back to nature, understanding, the food that you eat, where does it come from? The milk that you drink, where does it come from? And families here, and including local families and tourists as well, and expats, are all kind of keen to show the new generation and their kids that, milk doesn't come off the shelf of a supermarket, but this is where it actually comes from. So they're trying to develop a lot of the farmlands here towards educational experiences for families surrounding agriculture and animals. I think we're going to be seeing more projects, glamping projects, that would be implemented in such an environment.
Okay, thank you. And if anyone wants to find out more about the developments in that region and they want to hear from you about it, where should they go for that?
Yeah, please get in touch with me on my LinkedIn page, Chris Nader. I'd love to help you and answer you. We've been doing a lot of consultancy and advising many investors in the region. I've been working here for many years, so happy to be of any help for both local investors from the Middle East and any UK investors who are keen to come to the region to develop glamping projects.
Perfect. Well, thank you for giving up your time and coming on.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Glamping Tech podcast. I hope you enjoyed and that you found value in today's episode. If you did, feel free to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us move up the podcast rankings. Thank you.